All right, welcome. If you're a new process operator, you are in exactly the right place. We're about to break down the absolute fundamentals of safety. And I'm not just talking about rules, we're talking about the mindset, the way of thinking that's going to keep you and your team safe day in and day out. So let's jump right in. And look, this isn't some over-the-top warning, it's just the reality of the job. We work in an environment with incredible pressures, extreme temperatures, and materials you have to respect. The stakes couldn't be higher. And as you can see, one small slip-up from any one of us can lead to something catastrophic. So what's it going to take to stay safe out there? Well, I can tell you it's not about being lucky. It's about skill, it's about discipline, and it's about a specific mindset that you have to consciously build and practice on every single shift. Okay, so first things first, let's really get our heads around why safety is our #1 priority. This isn't just about following regulations. It's the entire system that protects actual lives, yours, your colleagues, not to mention the critical equipment and the world right outside the plant fence. To stay safe, you've got to know your enemy, right? A process plant is full of hazards, and a lot of them are things you can't even see. So let's start identifying these threats that are often hiding in plain sight. First up, we've got mechanical hazards. Now, this is the obvious stuff, like the rotating shafts on pumps or any kind of moving machinery. But it also includes stored energy. Just picture a high-pressure pipe. Even when everything's shut down, that pipe is holding back an enormous amount of force, just waiting for a way out. That is a hidden danger you've got to respect. And then, of course, there are chemical hazards. We're working with stuff that can be flammable, toxic, or corrosive. A tiny leak of a flammable liquid, it can find an ignition source you had no idea was even there. A little whiff of a toxic gas can have an immediate serious effect. Knowing exactly what you're handling is absolutely non-negotiable. We're also dealing with thermal hazards from extreme temperatures. That steam line that doesn't have any insulation? It might look harmless from a few feet away, but it can cause a life-altering burn in an instant. Same thing goes for cryogenic liquids on the cold side. Extreme heat, extreme cold, they both demand your constant undivided attention. And finally, never ever underestimate electrical hazards. A frayed cable, a panel cover that's missing, these things can create a lethal risk in a split second. It's another one of those invisible forces, just like stored pressure, that you have to treat with total respect. An arc flash can happen faster than you can even blink. Okay, here's a really important thing to remember. Major accidents almost never just happen out of the blue. They are almost always preceded by warning signs, little clues that something's not quite right. The real skill is learning to spot these clues before they snowball into a huge consequence. And this slide right here, it shows you something absolutely critical: the path to failure. Big accidents don't just happen. They often start small, as a near miss. If that gets ignored, it can grow into an incident, and then finally into a full-blown accident. So let's get crystal clear on what each of those words really means. Okay, so understanding the difference here is huge. An accident is when someone actually gets hurt or something gets damaged. An incident is an unplanned event that could have caused harm, but didn't. But the near miss. The near miss is the golden opportunity. It's an event that absolutely could have caused harm, but for whatever reason, just pure luck maybe, it didn't. There's this idea called the safety pyramid, and it shows that for every one major accident, there are hundreds of these near misses. That's why we call them free lessons. They're warnings we get without anyone having to pay the price. And that's exactly why these free lessons are pure gold. Every single time a near miss gets reported, the whole team gets a chance to investigate and fix a problem before it can actually hurt someone. It is one of the most powerful, proactive things you can possibly do for safety. All right, so we know the hazards, we know the warning signs. So how do we actually protect ourselves? Well, the answer is in having multiple layers of defense. Think of it like armor. No single thing keeps a plant safe. It's a whole series of barriers all working together. So let's walk through these layers of protection, one by one. First, you've got your procedures. That's the playbook, the right way to do the job. Then you have alarms, which are there to shout at you when things start to go wrong. After that, you've got interlocks, which are automated systems that can shut things down to prevent a disaster. Then, of course, you've got your PPE, your personal armor. But what's the last and most critical layer of them all? It's you. I really want this one to sink in. You can have all the fancy technology and all the rules in the world, but they can never replace an alert, smart, and cautious operator. Your eyes, your ears, your gut feeling, your actions. You are the last and a lot of times the most effective line of defense there is. And because you are that final critical barrier, you are given an incredibly powerful tool. It's called stop work authority. Let me say that again so it really lands. Stop work authority. And it means exactly what it sounds like. Anyone, and I mean anyone at any level, has both the right and, frankly, the responsibility to stop any job if they feel, for any reason, that it's unsafe. Let's be perfectly clear on this. Using your stop work authority is not a sign of weakness. It's not about slowing down the job. It is the absolute highest sign of professionalism. It shows that you value the safety of every person on that site more than anything else. And that right there is the mark of a great operator. Which brings us to our final piece of the puzzle. And honestly, it's the most personal one. We've talked about the hazards. We've talked about the systems. Now let's talk about the mindset. That personal code that really defines what it means to be a safe professional. So what does that look like day to day? Well, it means you follow the procedure to the letter, every single time. It means you resist that little voice in your head telling you to take a shortcut to save 5 minutes. It means you focus on doing the job the right way, not just the fast way. And it means having the courage to speak up the very second, you see something that doesn't feel safe. You know, safety culture isn't just some poster on a wall or a line in a manual. It's built, shift by shift, by the actions and decisions of every single person on the floor. Your commitment to doing things right, your willingness to speak up, that behavior sets the standard for everybody else around you. You literally define the culture. Look, at the end of the day, after all is said and done, this whole thing boils down to one simple, totally non-negotiable goal. Yeah, production targets matter, of course they do. But nothing, and I mean nothing, is more important than making sure that you and every single one of your coworkers gets to go home safely at the end of every shift, period. So, I'm going to leave you with this question. And it's not a test, it's more like a personal commitment. As you walk out onto the floor for your next shift, just ask yourself, what specific things am I going to do today? What am I going to be looking out for? How am I going to be that final critical safety barrier? Your answer to that question makes all the difference in the world.